in a bitter turn of events that reignites one of Hollywood's most painful separations. Angelina Jolie has accused Brad Pitt of nearly stealing their French estate. Château Miraval, the same place where they once vowed forever. What began as a sanctuary of love and family has become the heart of a relentless legal storm, one that now threatens to rewrite the final chapter of their story. Nearly a decade after their split, Jolie's new court filings do more than reopen old wounds. They reveal how deep the emotional scars still run. The actress claims she walked away from both their Los Angeles home and Miraval without compensation, in hopes of calming the storm between them. But instead of peace, the silence that followed has turned into a legal war, one that insiders say Brad is determined to fight to the very end. What was once a fairy tale built on shared purpose, children, philanthropy, film, and family, now reads like a long-form tragedy about power, property, and pride. The home that once echoed with laughter has become a courtroom exhibit. The vineyard that once symbolized togetherness has turned into a battlefield. And as every new document surfaces, it becomes increasingly clear that Miraval is no longer just land or legacy. It is the embodiment of everything that broke between them. To understand why this fight feels so personal, one has to go back to the early 2000s, when Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie were not just a couple, but a cultural phenomenon. They weren't merely actors in love. They were symbols of a new kind of Hollywood ideal, global, humanitarian, and artistically intertwined. When they bought Miraval, a 1,000-acre estate in the south of France, it was more than a purchase. It was a declaration of permanence. The chateau wasn't just a retreat, it was where they created, married, raised their children, and bottled their vision of life. By 2014, when they exchanged vows there, the estate had become sacred ground. It held echoes of childbirths, family dinners, art, music, and the laughter of 6 growing children. Friends described the place as a living memory, one that represented everything they had built together away from the world's flashbulbs. Yet behind that idyllic image was a slow fracture neither could ignore. The pressures of fame, differing parenting philosophies, and emotional distance began to erode the foundation. By 2016, what had once been a refuge had turned into a prison of unresolved conflict. That same year, the private jet incident that would define their divorce unfolded, a single flight that became the symbol of everything that went wrong. Angelina filed for divorce days later, citing the safety and well-being of her children as the reason. What followed wasn't just a breakup. It was an unraveling, public, painful, and seemingly endless. For years after the split, both actors tried, at least publicly, to move forward. Brad entered therapy and spoke openly about sobriety and self-reflection. Angelina devoted herself to her children and humanitarian work, often seen abroad or attending red carpet events with her older kids by her side. But beneath the surface, the battle over Miraval simmered. In 2021, Jolie sold her shares in the vineyard to Yuri Shefler, the Russian-born billionaire behind the Jolie Group. Her reasoning, she later explained, was not financial but emotional. "I couldn't remain a co-owner of a business that was linked to such painful memories," she said in court filings. She emphasized that she had never sought alimony or financial support from Brad. Instead, she wanted to move forward cleanly. Pitt, however, saw the sale differently. His legal team claimed that they had a mutual agreement. Neither could sell without the other's consent. To him, her sale to Jolie was a violation of that pact. To her, it was an act of liberation, a way to finally detach from a space that had become haunted by memory. Château Miraval, once an emblem of art and family, became the stage for the next act of their dispute. Pitt's lawsuit accused Jolie of breaching their agreement, effectively undermining his control of the winery. Jolie's counterclaims painted a different picture, a woman silenced by fear, constrained by emotional trauma, and unwilling to accept another demand for control. In her filings, Jolie described how difficult the negotiations had been, especially after their separation. "These discussions were always difficult for me," she wrote, "due to my deep emotional ties to our family home and how our relationship ended." She revealed that Miraval had been where she carried her pregnancies, where they married, and where their children had learned to walk. "To have such a sudden break from my home and memories has been hard," she said. It was especially difficult for the children to have their lives so disrupted. Pitt's camp, meanwhile, dismissed the emotional framing as a tactic, a distracting narrative, according to one insider. "They say Angelina is trying to rewrite history," the source told Star. Brad just wants what's fair. He's seeing this case through in court because he believes his rights were violated. The legal filings are now as dense as any screenplay, layers of claims, counterclaims, NDAs, and allegations of coercion. Jolie has stated that Pitt once conditioned the buyout of her shares on her signing an NDA that would prevent her from speaking publicly about their marriage or its end, a demand she refused. To her, the clause was another form of silencing. To him, it was a standard legal precaution. To the outside world, it read like the continuation of a private power struggle now laid bare in public documents. What makes this story resonate beyond gossip pages is the way it lays bare the emotional residue of love turned to resentment. For two people once united in purpose, raising children, fighting for refugees, co-producing films, the transformation is striking. Every new filing, every headline, feels like another piece of emotional evidence, each side arguing not just for property but for moral vindication. Observers have long noted how differently they process pain. Brad Pitt often seeks redemption through art and restraint, giving carefully curated interviews about growth and accountability. Angelina Jolie channels hers through activism and maternal devotion, emphasizing healing and strength. Yet even in their separation, their paths remain entangled, not romantically, but through shared history and shared wounds. The real cost, however, is borne by their 6 children. Sources close to the family suggest the divide has taken its toll, particularly on the older kids who witnessed the breakdown firsthand. Maddox, once close to both parents, reportedly keeps distance from Brad. Zahara and Pax have carved their own identities, with Pax rumored to have written about the emotional toll of the split in private posts. Shiloh, the bridge between both worlds, remains protective of her siblings. The twins, Knox and Vivienne, are now in the delicate stage of late adolescence, growing up under the long shadow of their parents' fame and feud. For them, Miraval isn't just a vineyard. It's a symbol of a childhood caught between memory and media. In recent months, the case has intensified. Jolie's legal team argues that Pitt's camp has tried to recast her as uncooperative or vindictive, while she maintains that her actions were consistent with a woman seeking closure. She has never sought to harm Brad, one insider close to her insists, but she will not be controlled by him either. Court documents reveal a tangle of financial details, shell companies, European holdings, and corporate transfers that read more like a Wall Street thriller than a divorce case. Yet underneath those numbers lies the real story. 2 people still fighting for control over the narrative of their lives. Pitt's side claims Jolie's sale to Stoli jeopardized the brand's image, which he personally nurtured into a successful rosé label. Jolie's team counters that Brad treated the business like his personal vanity project, sidelining her from decision-making even before the sale. Both sides accuse the other of rewriting the truth. And in between the legal jargon lies something raw, the unspoken truth that neither has fully let go. Miraval has become more than an estate. It's the emotional epicenter of everything they once shared. To outsiders, it's just a vineyard, rolling hills, stone walls, lavender fields. But for Jolie, it represents the memories she can't reclaim. For Pitt, it stands as proof of endurance, his attempt to preserve something beautiful amid ruin. There's a haunting symmetry in the fact that Miraval, once their dream of permanence, has outlasted their marriage. Its vines still grow, its wines still sell, its sun still rises over the same courtyard where they exchanged vows. But the 2 people who once called it home now see it only through legal documents and lawyers' statements. When Jolie says she has never again set foot on the property, it isn't just a logistical fact, it's an emotional declaration. To walk there again would be to relive the collapse of everything she tried to hold together. And when Brad insists he's protecting his legacy, it's not just about business. It's about holding on to the one thing that still feels unbroken. Why does the world still care so deeply about Brad and Angelina? In every public appearance, every quote, every court filing, there's a subtle performance of strength, but also grief. Jolie's red carpet poise contrasts with her weary courtroom statements. Pitt's calm demeanor at film premieres contrasts with the frustration expressed in his filings. They are, in a sense, still acting, not on screen, but in the theater of public perception. Yet what lingers most isn't the scandal but the sorrow, a sense that 2 people who once changed each other's lives can no longer share the same ground, literally or emotionally.